Thank you, brother. So we are going to be there in that very passage this evening, 2 Kings chapter 7, and we're going to be looking at this account this evening. And I have a question to start us off, though. Are there certain kinds of news that you find it hard to keep to yourself? I remember when I proposed to Corey in marriage. We were, you probably all heard the story, was we were up at the Opryland, and that's where I proposed to her, and we were making our way back. I was going to take her back to her apartment afterward that night, and it was almost immediate. She was calling everybody she knew right away. She had them on speakerphone, and we were talking to mom and dad and all her siblings and everybody. That was something she did not waste any time telling anyone. And, arguably that was good news that I had proposed to her in marriage. That was something that she did not keep to herself. And that is something that is probably true of many things in life. When we get really good news that we are real excited about, we don't want to keep it to ourselves. We could hardly wait till we could tell somebody about it. And yet, when it comes to our faith, for some reason, we don't follow that same pattern, do we? Oftentimes. It's something that we have heard the gospel. We've responded to the gospel, but we seem reluctant to share it with people. And this is what that word means. Good news means, or the word gospel means good news. And yet we tend to keep it to ourselves. So this account here, just to provide some context to this, what our brother just read for us in 2 Kings chapter 7, Samaria had been under siege for a very long time, and it had gotten so bad, if you look at chapter 6 of 2 Kings, that there were mothers within that city that had agreed with one another that they would eat each other's children. It's there in chapter 6. It's pretty desperate, isn't it? They're in a bad situation. They are at the brink of death. They are starving. And of course, the Bible does not condone that agreement, by the way. So don't make no mistake about that. Say that only to show that these people were desperate. They were starving due to the Syrians besieging the city. So Elisha, however, at the beginning of chapter 7, promised that by the end of that day, food would be plentiful and cheap again, actually. If you look at verse 1 of chapter 7, then Elisha said, "Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria." If you know anything about economics, if you know the very elementary thing about economics, it's the law of supply and demand. And so if things are cheap, that means supply is high. And that's what he's basically saying in 2 Kings chapter 1 and verse 7. So Elisha tells them food is going to be plentiful by the end of the day. And yet outside that same gate, here in chapter 7, you have sitting in the dirt there, outside the gate, outside the city, because that's what the law required of them, 4 lepers. They weren't allowed inside. They had nothing left to lose. And they are the ones who found the news that entire city was starving for. And so this lesson this evening, this is about someone who finds the good news first and what it costs that person to sit on that good news and how long a city can starve. In chapter 7, while the people who have already have found sustenance remain silent on it. There in 2 Kings 7 and verse 9, then they said to one another, "We do not well." If we find that we have good news and we choose not to share it, we do not well. Especially when it comes to, this was a matter of physical life and death in chapter 7, and we have something before us that is a matter of spiritual life and death. How much more serious can that be? Point number one, good news here was found by the least likely of messengers. In verse 3 of our text here, there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, "Why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we shall die also. Now therefore come, and let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall die." And so we have here 4 lepers sitting outside the gate because the law required it, Leviticus 13:46, excluded from the community that is now starving to death within those walls. These 4 men had no standing within that community, no resources, and nothing to offer anyone. And their reasoning in verse 4 is basically the logic of someone with nothing left to lose. We're going to die if we stay here. We could go surrender to the Syrians, and we have a chance of surviving. And so that's what they do. But we find, and you read there in verse 6, that the Lord had made the Syrian army hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And so what they did was they got up and they ran. They didn't pick a thing up. They left it there in the camp, all the food, all the horses, everything there at the camp. You know, sometimes the people that are most aware of the appearance of grace are those downtrodden, those that have been excluded like these lepers were, are most aware of what it means to be left without. And oftentimes they are the first to find the good news and the first to accept it. You take, for example, the addict who's in recovery, or who has recovered. Someone who has been through addiction can recognize what someone else is going through who is currently addicted to something. You might consider the outsider who is familiar with what it's like to be outside of something. And when you have been accustomed to that, when you see a visitor, for instance, that comes through the doors, you know how to treat them, right? God has never required a qualification, standing, or good motives for the price of finding him, for finding his word. So the gospel here we find in 2 Kings 7, it finds those who are excluded first, who know what it's like to be excluded. And then we find their behavior as we see it in verse 9 of this passage. Verse 9, then they said one to another, "We do not well. This day is a day of good tidings." I'm sorry, we back up here. I'll just summarize it. We've already read it. What they do is they enter into one tent, they gather up the food, they gather up the gold, they gather up the silver, and they go and hide it. They come back, they enter into another tent, they gather up the food, they gather up the wealth that is found in there, they go and hide it, and they do this repeatedly until we come to verse 9. They said one to another, "We do not well." That is, we are not doing the right thing right now. And they come to the realization that the city behind them, that they are from, is filled with people starving. And they have come upon the exact thing that those people need: sustenance, food. And I'm supposed to cut this short. We're supposed to stop at 1:30. So I'm just going to summarize this for you guys. There's a handout in the back if you wish to see the outline here. But they turn from hoarding to telling, and what they've been hoarding is good news. We have this food, this sustenance, and the very thing that the people within those walls are going to die without. We have it. We've been sitting on it, and we do not well. It says they refer to it. The Hebrew word here is besora, good tidings, good news. It's the same root behind what we use today, the gospel. So these lepers named their find in the church's own words, the gospel. Have we not found the gospel if we're here this evening? Are we sitting on the gospel? And if we are, we do not well, just as the lepers came to that conclusion. In verses 10 through 11, one final application to make. The lepers did not tell the whole city, did they? That would be a daunting task to think that I had to go tell an entire city the news, spread the gospel to the entire city. And that's not what the lepers did either. What the lepers did was they came to the gate, they told the porter. The porter told the next person up. And then the next person up told the next person till it reached the king himself. That's all we can do when spreading the gospel. It's just tell the next person. And eventually, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to, the whole city, the whole community will be reached. So tell the one person nearest you. You owe the next link, the next person to you, not the whole chain. I had way more than that, but we've got a training to do. Where are you this evening? The lepers had no standing. They had mixed motives. If you look at it, they said, "Well, we're going to die here. We go over here. We're going to perhaps live." And then even when they found the stuff, they said, some mischief could come upon us if we stay here longer. So that's when they decided to go back and tell the good news. They still concluded that keeping the good news to themselves was not a good thing. They did not well. Every one of us who has tasted the gospel has less excuse of silence than those 4 lepers did. But didn't get time to look at the captain there. You can look at the demise of the captain in verses 17 through 20. But we need to ask, where are we? Are we the captain who ignored the news this evening? Are we the 4 lepers? Are we in their seat where we have heard the good news, the news that could save an entire community, and yet we're sitting on it? If you have not obeyed the gospel this evening, you've heard it, if you have not heard it, believed it, repented of your sins, confessed Christ and been baptized for the remission of your sins, that we have good news for you this evening. What are you going to do with it? And if you're a Christian who has known where the bread is this entire time, we need to make the decision to spread the good news this evening. If you have any need this evening, come forth as we stand and as we sing. Sweet are the promises,